What Islamist militants are using young girls for in Nigeria. The House of Cards is coming back, and we'll have a sneak peek at the trailer for Season 3. Plus, ESPN makes history. All these stories and more coming up on The Rundown.
All right, stand by. 10 seconds.
Ready, camera,
Count.
Ready, camera,
Record.
3, 2, 1.
Record.
Thanks so much for joining us. This is The Rundown, where we run down some of the big stories making headlines. I'm your host, John Phillips. Joining us from Dallas, Texas, is our pal Scott Ott. And here in studio, we're joined by stand-up comic and PJTV contributor, Stephen Cruiser. Now it's time to go to the top of the rundown. And I'll go first since I'm in that kind of mood. At the top of my rundown, the Islamist terror group Boko Haram is now using young girls as suicide bombers in Nigeria. Little girls are being used to detonate explosives. The most recent bombing took place on Saturday in the northeast part of Nigeria. A 10-year-old girl had explosives strapped to her body and blew herself up. 16 people were killed. More than 20 were injured in the bombing. The group is using young girls because it's less obvious and easy to use them as mules. And Stephen Cruiser, just when you think that these people can't get more evil, you see something like this.
These are the most disturbing people on the planet that we're dealing with right now, and getting some of the least amount of ink in the press, which is, I mean, yes, it was what happened last week was tragic and sensational in France, but at the same time, when the 12 people were killed there, were 15, it ended up being total, I think, 2,000 were killed in Africa last week, thanks to Boko Haram. And I just, the neglect that we pay to that part of the world, it's like we've written off an entire continent and the evil that's being done there, because that's where a lot of the nastiest of the Islamic fundamentalists are being trained and unleashed, is over there. And I know some people are deployed there right now. We are doing things, but I think the lack of attention paid to it in the media and by world leaders is appalling.
You know, Scott, before you get whipped up into a tizzy over the story, I want to point out that the terrorists did say that the girls were willing participants.
Well, wouldn't a terrorist say that? And, you know, one of the things, the way that was phrased is the girl blew herself up. As we well know, these suicide bombers are often under extreme duress, whether they're adult males or little girls in this case, and it's not necessary for them to detonate themselves. Those bombs can be set off with a cell phone. This is one of the more despicable things in the world. It is something that needs to be called evil by the administration in Washington, D.C. And, you know, how do you not do something about this? Like Cruiser said, I mean, 2,000 people slaughtered in one village, just burning and raping and pillaging and using little girls as bombs. And, you know, not surprisingly, they're drawing their inspiration from the same place that the Charlie Hebdo killers drew their inspiration.
You know, Scott, Josh Earnest, the White House press secretary, was grilled by Mara Liasson of NPR yesterday. And it was a real window into the mind of what's going on at the White House, where she said, why is it that you people aren't calling this Islamic terrorism? You refuse to call it that. You call it violence, you call it, you know, horrible acts, you call it any number of things, but they won't call it Islamic terrorism. And they said it's because it's not that. Your thoughts on that, Scott?
It's a lie. I mean, either that or how stupid can somebody be? It's either a lie to cover up something that they just don't want to say, or it's just pure idiocy. I mean, you can't say that this is not Islamic terror. You could say, hey, it's Islamic terror, and we believe that the vast majority of Muslims in the world do not interpret the Quran to mean that you can strap a bomb on a little girl, but clearly this is being done at the behest of their God. Now, personally, I think their God is Satan, but they call him Allah.
Tough words there.
Very tough words there. I mean, even if you just said they're invoking Islam when they do this, even, I mean, if you skirt, as Scott said, if you even started to skirt the truth, it would be quite an upgrade with the way they're handling it right now. But they're in complete denial, which is what is the most ridiculous aspect.
And I think their philosophy is if you tell a lie enough times, people will start to believe it.
Well, when they had all of the media in the pre-digital era in the tank, that was the Democratic way of doing things, was you just repeated it, and then suddenly Sarah Palin can see Russia from her house, even though she never said that.
And before we move on, I want to point this out, too. The girls in Africa were the girls that motivated Michelle Obama to carry the sign that says, "Bring back our girls."
Yep.
and they launched that Twitter campaign, but did nothing substantive to solve the situation or solve the problem. And now these girls are being used as bombs.
Are you
mules.
saying that good hashtagging didn't solve the problem?
No.
They gave them a righteous hashtag.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
John, the most positive thing, the only really positive thing in that entire story was when you said Mara Liasson of NPR was grilling Josh Earnest. I haven't heard that in years.
There you go. All right, Scott, what do you have for us?
Well, at the top of my rundown, a Saudi blogger is publicly flogged 1,000 times by the government of a U.S. ally. The flogging of Raif Badawi happened because officials in Saudi Arabia say, guess what? He insulted Islam. This is cell phone video taken during Friday's flogging. Amnesty International has led a global outcry over the brutal sentence, and Badawi was condemned to 10 years in prison and 20 weekly whipping sessions of 50 lashes each. Now, is there any chance that President Obama will speak out against this, or does it merely prove that Obama was right when he said the future must not belong to those who slander the Prophet of Islam?
Well, I don't think that's an isolated incident, Scott. In fact, I believe that that's happened a few times over at MSNBC to Joe Scarborough. So it's something that's not just a Saudi Arabian thing. But, you know,
Hey,
Cruiser,
what
there
Mika
was
and Joe do in their private time is none of our business, I'd say.
There is a piece in USA Today, I don't know if you saw it, from someone who was giving the opposing viewpoint on, I guess, the criticism of Islam and the whole Paris situation, and specifically radical Muslims. And he said, what the West needs to understand is you can have free speech, but there isn't free speech in Sharia law. So you need to respect that, and you need to lay off the Prophet Muhammad, because otherwise, God knows what's going to happen. So if you do that, you're poking at the bear, and pretty much, I mean, this is me paraphrasing here, whatever happens, you brought on yourself.
But God forbid a baker here doesn't want to make a cake for a gay wedding. But this is what I mean. If a Christian here speaks out against something, he's vilified for it, for his beliefs, but we're supposed to understand the beliefs of the people that want to whip a blogger for saying something bad. Okay, they're whipping a blogger for saying something bad. That's what's going on. The big deal here is that George W. Bush was vilified in the press constantly for being tight with the House of Saud, okay, and for being allies with Saudi Arabia, as if that were a Republican-only thing. It's not. The country, we are always, and have been quite a while, allies with the House of Saud and with Saudi Arabia, and that is the problem here. We turn a blind eye to what they do all the time because they're our allies, and maybe they shouldn't be our allies anymore. This is one of the greatest reasons to keep fracking, to keep going for natural gas here, to have us become truly energy independent, as every politician for 20 years has paid lip service to. Let us become truly independent, cut the cord with these barbaric people who are our allies right now.
Well, Scott, talk to me about the internal politics of Saudi Arabia for a minute, because you've got a really weird situation. You got a situation where it's an Islamic country, but you have essentially two groups of people with nobody in the middle. You have the elites that live in the big palaces that spend all their oil money living at the intersection of Sodom and Gomorrah, where they have the hookers and the food and all the entertainment that they could possibly want, the private jets, they travel all around the world. And then you have poor people who live in abject poverty that are religious fanatics. The people at the top aren't the religious fanatics, but they have to indulge the people at the bottom so that they don't overthrow the social order there and they don't take their wealth. It's strange, isn't it?
It's more than indulging. It is actually funding. It is these wealthy princelings who are funding the madrasas where kids spend 6 hours a day, memorizing the Quran, and the rest of the time learning to hate Western civilization and being indoctrinated by Sharia law. It's the people at the top that are paying for those schools. It's the people at the top who are funding. It's our dollars going into our gas tanks for years anyway, until we started becoming independent ourselves, that are funding this evil. And I don't think we should let them divorce themselves from that. I don't think we should let them say, oh, well, we're just capitalists like you. I think Stephen is right. We need to start making some demands upon our allies and say, look, you can't be my friend if you do this to people.
But that's why the bloggers are so threatening, though, because say a blogger in Saudi Arabia decides to run with the story of the hookers and the cocaine and the booze and all the other sins against Allah that the people at the top are committing in Saudi Arabia. You run with pictures or with stories, and you can really cause them problems. So they have to come down on those bloggers pretty hard if they want to maintain their status on top.
The same thing is going on in this country. The establishment, the people, the old guard, they're threatened by digital media, and they may not be whipping us right now, but they are trying to shut us up. This has been going on since the digital explosion, since the social media explosion, everything. That's exactly what's going on here, and the media is complicit. The old media is complicit in this. I mean, the United States media right now isn't condemning Saudi Arabia because or Barack Obama because he's tight with Saudi Arabia too. They're covering for them right now. If we had a Republican in the White House right now, they might be a little harsher about the Saudi Arabia, but they're not at the moment. They're afraid of everybody.
All right, Cruiser, what do you have for us?
At the top of my rundown, sadly, California's Attorney General Kamala Harris is running for the United States Senate, and predictably, too. Harris will be running to fill Barbara Boxer's seat. Boxer recently announced she would not be running for a 5th term in office. Harris is the former district attorney of San Francisco. She left to serve as California Attorney General. Harris said in a statement, quote, "I will be a fighter for the next generation on the critical issues facing our country." She went on to say she will fight for the middle class, children, seniors, and students, adding that she wants to be a voice for all Californians. The race could be one of the most expensive in the country come 2016. Okay, John, I don't know if it's going to be one of the most expensive in the country come 2016, because I'll go to you first as a fellow Californian. The GOP in California really doesn't have anybody on the bench to counterpunch here. There is no one unless they find one of these self-funded billionaires of theirs to implode again. That's the only way that this is going to become an expensive race. At this point in history, how does the California GOP, is with all the momentum everywhere else in the world, and don't tell me California is a demographic anomaly, because it's not. More than half of the elected offices in this state are held by Republicans right now. How is the California GOP so dysfunctional that they don't even have like a decent sacrificial lamb to throw at this?
Well, they may have a person that could be competitive, and her name is Condoleezza Rice. Condoleezza Rice is up for the president of the University of Texas at Austin right now, but it's unsure if she's going to take the job. If she doesn't take the job, she could come back to California and run for the Senate seat. David Dreyer, who's a former chairman of the Rules Committee in the House, is also being urged to run. There's a assemblyman from San Diego County, Rocky Chavez, who's thinking about jumping in the race. Money would be a problem for him. But here's how you create an opening for a Republican in California. The Democratic primary is going to be fractured because you had a log jam at the top because you had Boxer and Feinstein in office for years and Jerry Brown coming back for a 3rd and 4th term. So there's 2 generations of Democrats who want to move up to the next level. My guess is a guy by the name of Tom Steyer, who is an environmentalist from San Francisco, who's a billionaire, a hedge fund guy, is going to get in the race. Yep. And possibly Antonio Villaraigosa or Loretta Sanchez, who would be a Latino from Southern California. That would make Kamala Harris and Tom Steyer 2 liberals from Northern California up against a more moderate Latino from Southern California. There is a path for a Republican if that primary gets really vicious and really nasty, and there's some group in the Democratic Party that feels alienated, whether it be Latinos or women or whoever, that the Republican build a coalition with that group and possibly squeak in November. It's a long shot, but it could happen.
It's a long shot, yeah. But and if Condi Rice does come over here, though, that's a gift from heaven, not the product of some kind of functionality in the California GOP.
That's correct.
That's nothing that they did there. Scott, most of the candidates we're talking about who will probably prevail as the Democrats are rather youngish. They're in their early 50s, and given the recent history in the Senate, that means they could serve for another 60 or 70 years. We've talked about this before. I've not always been a big fan of term limits, but these lengthy Senate careers really are a problem for the United States, aren't they? For the functionality of government, you can look to the lengthy Senate terms as the root of so many problems in the United States right now, can't you?
I agree, and I'm not a term limits guy either. I mean, my theory is that the voters should be the term limiters. But, you know, you've got that combination of a dysfunctional Republican Party in California, according to you two who actually live there, and just it seems that the paucity of solid Republican candidates. Hard to believe from the state of Ronald Reagan, we can't find somebody decent to run for the U.S. Senate. I'm kind of torn here, too, because you said Condoleezza Rice may come to Austin. I mean, that's almost in Texas, and we would love to have her in Texas.
Don't take her from us, Scott.
People from People from Texas will understand why I said Austin is only almost in Texas. You know, the Republicans have to get a lot more serious about building their bench. I think John has a good theory there, though. I hope that these Democrats cut each other's throats on their once-in-a-generation opportunity to get a Senate seat, and maybe somebody from the Republican side could come in.
Our friend here and PJTV colleague Bill Whittle has a good idea he floated to me once. He thinks that people should only be able to hold in Washington 2 consecutive terms. And then they have to go do something else. And then if they want to come back after skipping a term and do that, and he thinks that would discourage a lot of people, would make it better, but it's not really term limits either. And I kind of like that idea better than
Well, you'd have revolving chairs is what you'd have. You'd have people
Yeah.
go from the Senate to the House, or they'd come back and be mayor, governor.
Or they'd get tired of the whole thing because, you know, the people from the Senate doesn't want to go to the House. They're not going to switch those lunchrooms, okay? The House people are going to sit there and go, well, I want to stay now. And then, no,
That's going from Ruth's Chris to Applebee's.
Yeah, that's...
All right, now it's time to move on to the sweet spot.
Sweet spot.
This, of course, is where we take a look at some of the lighter and softer stories making news. And Scott, you're up first.
Well, it doesn't get any sweeter than this. In my sweet spot, a government official in Texas has declared cupcake amnesty. Sid Miller is the new agricultural commissioner of the Lone Star State. During his campaign, he said that health care, water, and exports of Texas-made goods were his top priorities. But during his first day in office, he took action on something even more meaningful. He declared amnesty for mom-baked cupcakes in public schools. That's right, Texas has rolled back restrictions passed in 2004 that were meant to curb childhood obesity by ruining school birthday parties. Miller said that kids aren't getting any skinnier by making birthdays less happy. And here's the icing on the cupcake. It seems that the rule was actually revoked last year, but nobody knew about it until now. Thank you, Sid Miller, a rare politician who actually made life a little bit sweeter.
They always say that politicians are all in favor of motherhood and apple pie. Now we can add cupcakes to the list.
I like this guy, but
Awesome.
if all these cupcakes start voting Democrat, I'm going to be mad.
All right, Cruiser, what do you have for us?
In the sweet spot, Ohio State dominated the Oregon Ducks in the first college football playoff national championship. But the big headline from the game, the highest ratings ever for ESPN in its 35-year history. The ratings were the best ever in cable history as well. The Buckeyes' 42-20 win resulted in an 18.5 overnight rating for ESPN. That's 21% higher than last year's championship game. I don't know how that could be 21% higher than 18.5. I missed the whole math there. The game also shattered the metered market ratings. This is now... I'm a huge college football fan, as you know, and I haven't even wanted to watch some of the most recent BCS title games. This one, I had no dog in the fight, but I was like, what the heck? I loved the game. I felt like this was a worthy championship game. This format will be better when it goes to 8 games instead of 4 games, but this made it legit. This made it fun. This made it worth watching, and I think that most college football fans I know are thrilled with this new format.
Happiest people in the world? Executives in Connecticut.
Yes.
For ESPN.
Thrilled people, and and Ohio's pretty drunk still.
What did they set, like 80 fires after the game?
Well, that's just because it's cold. I mean, it's freezing there. I mean, if somebody from Southern California or Southern Arizona ever wins a championship, we're going to like, we're good. We don't need to set anything on fire.
All right, in my sweet spot, Netflix has released the trailer for the 3rd season of House of Cards. Very excited about this. The hit Emmy Award-winning series stars Kevin Spacey as the ruthless congressman. Let's go ahead and take a look at the official trailer, shall we?
You want to know what takes real courage? Holding it all together when the stakes are this high.
We're murderers, Francis.
We're survivors.
Okay, so season 3 starts on February 27th. Don't ask me to do anything. Don't call me. Don't email me, because I'm going to spend the whole day watching this. I cannot wait.
I'm excited too, but honestly, I got to be honest, I haven't binge watched season 2 yet. There too many of my favorite shows were ending this year, and I had to be caught up on all of them that I haven't gotten around to season 2. But I do, kudos to this show for actually portraying the Democrats as killers, where, as opposed to Scandal, where every Republican is an anti-gun, pro-gay marriage mass murderer. So at least they're somewhere closer to reality for House of Cards.
Scott, what has you more excited, season 3 of House of Cards or the day that Netflix got the facts of life?
I don't know. Both of those sound like porno movies to me. But you know, I will not be available to watch House of Cards because I'm reading this uplifting little book right now about the run up to the Third Reich, and so this is one of the best acted, most despicable pieces of trash I've ever seen. So I'm kind of torn. It's one of those shows
Wait,
I would
are you
watch
talking about House of
if
Cards
I didn't
or
have
this
to
show?
endure. Yes, but what? No, this and House of Cards. I would watch the show if I didn't have to every 5 minutes go, okay, here comes the porno movie part again.
Oddly enough, to me, backing Hitler sounds like porno.
Yeah. Speaking of despicable pieces of trash, this is The Rundown. Thanks so much for watching the show today. If you want to comment on today's program, you can do so in the comment section below. I'm John Phillips for Stephen Cruiser joining me here in Los Angeles and Scott Ott in Dallas, Texas. Thanks so much for watching.